Yeah, so thank you everyone again for joining. This is session 3. So think of this as the end of the first quarter. Like we've said over and over again, and we'll never stop saying it. Appreciate everyone for joining us. We know this is kind of be a pain in the behind. Daniel and I are going to try to make this fun as possible, like we always do. So we have some fun interactions and polls, engagements, and hopefully everyone learns a lot. We love having you guys interrupt. Although this one is going to be a packed session, so we might do questions at the end. Appreciate you coming. Again, this is a 12-week program. This is session 3 out of the program. That was me there that you saw on the right-hand side in my lovely pink suit. Daniel Smith is across the table from me. He is our chief solutioneer, and he knows everything that needs to be known about acoustics. So happy to have him here today presenting the 3rd session. We've split these sessions up into 2 categories, the field advantage and the confidence advantage. Daniel is your confidence expert. He is going to provide any technical leverage you will need to feel confident and safe in the field, whether it's hardware or whether it's wood or whether it's diving a little bit into acoustic takeoffs. And I'll be presenting the left-hand slide. I did over 9 hours worth of interviews of some of our best acoustic reps. I cross-referenced all of the learnings from those reviews into 6 key areas to present to you. What's great about this program is it is a la carte. Take what you want, leave what you don't. If it's not going to work for you, you don't like it, you think it's a bad idea, don't do it. That's all good. We are just providing you some of the learnings that we've had over the last 6 years selling acoustics. Daniel's done thousands of hours of acoustics consulting and solutioning. I have thousands of hours into white papers and research and behavior and marketing and all that good stuff. So thank you for joining, and let's get started.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about wood. I didn't really know what to call it. We called it Wood Acoustic Basics. It might be a good name for it, but we're going to discuss some of the differences and nuances with using wood in acoustics. One of the things I am going to ask is if you have questions that come up through kind of the presentation, we have time allotted at the end. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions around wood, and that's great. I love that. But I do want to get through all the slides. So if you have a question that comes up while I'm presenting, please just type it in the chat. And then when we get to the end, we'll come back and start to answer those questions and open it up for you guys to ask more. But again, as Brock said, thanks for joining, and let's get rolling into the real what we're all here for. So first, want to talk about why wood. Why are we selling wood acoustics? So we've seen a 38% compound annual growth rate. What that tells us is that this is growing. This is what people want. More and more people are willing to spend the money on wood acoustics. They're willing to go out and look for wood acoustics and do that. So that's what's emerging. That's what the market is wanting right now. Everybody's tired of felt, and they're certainly tired of fabric. And so they're looking for something that's new, something that they can incorporate into their design, not just be something that's thrown up on the walls. And that's what wood kind of gives them. So it is growing. The next one, a little competition. We only have one true competitor in the space that builds their acoustic panels the way that we do. Most of what you see out there that is wood acoustics is MDF with holes drilled into the back, and it's perforated. There's a really low NRC value. It's much heavier, sometimes harder to work with in the field. And there's a, doesn't perform like ours does. So there's little competition out there for us. So it's kind of a blue ocean, if you will. Larger deal sizes. That means more commissions for you guys. So in 2025, the average wood project was a $50,000. And again, these are, I don't have access to your numbers. These are our numbers, right? So it's even more for you. But average wood deal was $50,000, and that excluded the two extremely large deals that we did because they kind of skew the average. We had two jobs that were over $700,000, that one project. So they're larger than felt and fabric. You can see there the average felt job was 12,000 and the average fabric job was under 10. So that's another reason to go out there and lead with wood, right? The next piece is the premium solution. What I talked about with what people want, a lot of designers are really trying to incorporate acoustics into their designs instead of building this beautiful space and then try and solve the acoustic problem that space creates. And so this is a premium solution that you can offer that helps them design that beautiful space, solve the acoustics at the same time. And it also becomes the catalyst to what makes you the acoustics go-to. We talked a little bit last week about becoming that person for these designers that like, I need acoustics. I am going, I'm going to Peter because he never steers me wrong. He can handle the acoustics. I don't have to think about acoustics because he can do that. When I sold, prior life, I sold technology. I sold printers and copiers, and then software solutions to make businesses run more efficiently. And one of the things I did is I led with the solutions because that really makes an impact on their business. The printer and copier, everything I had, but my competitors had. There was really no differentiator there. All of them are pretty much the same. They operate just a little bit differently. But this is where the differentiation that I could have was those software solutions. And that's the same with acoustics. Everybody's got felt, everybody's got fabric. Nobody has wood. And if they do, it's subpar to what we do. And so if you lead with that and you become the expert there and you can provide that premium solution, yeah, okay, we'll get the fabric and the felt from you as well. That's just, cherry on top, right? So that's kind of the way why it's in there as a premium solution. That's why you want to lead with wood. If you can get them to buy into wood acoustics with mode, all the other things that they do with acoustics, they're going to do mode too. Because again, not really any different than all the other felt and all the other fabric that's out there. But you've solved the problem that they needed solved, so they're going to give you that other business as well. Some of the key differentiators of our wood as opposed to what's out on the marketplace is sound absorption. That's the first one. Our panels are all encompassing. The absorption is built into the panel. It has an acoustic core substrate, so it's absorbing sound that hits it. All of those MDF wood acoustic options that you see out there, there's no absorption. All it's doing is letting sound pass through and trying to get trapped. But because there's no absorption, eventually that sound gets back out of that panel and goes back into the space. And so from an NRC value, it's much, much lower than what our panel is, unless they go in and add an acoustic backer, like acoustic infill blanket.
And have a sub wall and have an open plenum where they can add the blankets on top of the panels.
Yes.
Our products can be adhered directly to a surface, whereas 99% of the other competitors are out there. You have to have other structure.
Yeah. And what you see is like a lot of that stuff says that up to a 0.8 or 8.5 NRC value, that's with that subwall. What never happens is that subwall actually getting installed. Even if it gets, sometimes it doesn't even get specified to be put into the plans. And then sometimes it does, and they're like, we need a VE, so we're going to pull that out. And so the end result is they think they're getting acoustics, they get into this space, and the noise is awful. The sound of the space is awful. And they thought they got acoustic, and they really didn't. And so by going with an all-encompassing panel, you don't have to worry about portions of it or what NRC you're going to get. You're going to get what the panels are. The premium wood veneer options, sustainability, special applications, a lot of what some of the differentiators that we have with our acoustics in that sense is very similar to the differentiators that you have with Sandfoot, right? We use the Sandfoot veneer for all of this. So we know it's a premium veneer. We know they do a much better job of consistency across their sheets to create beautiful spaces, the sustainability, how it's much thinner than the traditional wood, so you get more sheets out of one log. And then when it comes to like the special applications, what you saw, and I'm going to go back to it real quick, this particular ceiling that we did, this is in the College of the School of Medicine at Baylor, and this has turned out to be a beautiful project, very unique, very special application. And they came to us with, hey, we want to do a ceiling like this, and everybody's telling me they can't do it. And because our panels are so light, we can hang them on these angles. We can do things that you can't necessarily do with MDF all the time. And so we're able to take on projects like this that not everybody is willing to. And then, it's a great alternative to millwork. And when I say that is from a price perspective, if they have the budget for millwork in there, they have the budget for our wood acoustics. It's going to be very similar costs. We're just going to be, hey, yes, it's a wood panel, it's a wood plank, it's a premium look, it's going to look great. Also, it's going to absorb sound, and you're going to have a nice sounding room. It's going to be comfortable to be in. So it is a great alternative to millwork. A lot of people think that they can't afford acoustics, so they just go with the millwork. But the reality is, it's not that the price difference really isn't that great. And in some cases, in terms of premium millwork, our cost is actually lower. And so those are some of the biggest key differentiators that wood has. A lot of this you might know from all your trainings with Anthony and Sandfoot, but we're going to briefly touch on it here. What's important with the veneer? The key factors, there's 4 of them. It's the species, the cut, the match, and if there needs to be sequencing. You could add in there custom stain, but I kind of lumped that in with species. So we need to understand their species, what they want, what cut they want, how they want the leaves matched, and then if sequencing is required or wanted. And the reason that it's important that we know all these things heading into the project is because if some of this is up in the air, it can lead to unexpected outcomes. It can take longer to either source the veneer, or it can take longer to build a product. And there can be additional costs that are associated with some of the things when we have to go back and try and find these answers out later and realize like, oh, sometimes a quarter cut costs more than a flat cut, right? So if they just want walnut and we're going with a flat cut and they actually want the quarter cut, that's additional costs in there that are unexpected. So understanding all this going in is super important. Now, a little bit for us, species, we have 27 what we call standard species, and these are the species that are the most commonly specified, that also fall in line with a couple other things, which is availability and cost, right? There are some species out there that get specified a lot, but they're a premium species, and so they don't really fall into, from a cost standpoint, with our standards. But just like, we have access to all of Sandfoot's species, so there's over 100 species available, and species can affect lead time. There are certain species that are harder to source. There's certain species that take longer from a build time for Sandfoot, and there are some species that are seasonal, that they can only cut one time a year, and so they cut what they think they're going to need. But if it's a popular species and they run out, well, we have to wait for that. We have one right now that is a maple, and by the time we kind of ordered it beginning of this year, and they had already allotted all of the stuff that they had cut last spring. And so we're waiting on that right now. And so that's another kind of piece that species can affect those sort of things. So we definitely want to know what that is. Cut, the most standards are flat, quarter, rift, and rotary. I threw in there. Doesn't always we don't see that a lot. That one in burl we don't see a lot, but those are the typical cuts. Rift and quarter, very similar. They use rift instead of quarter on certain ones to get rid of flaking, but it gives you that tight grain. Flat gives you a much wider grain pattern, gives you a usually larger leaves, things like that. And then rotary is not leaves stitched together as there's not as many. It gives a very randomized look to the sheet. And then for matches, there's book match, slip match, random, and plank. We'll get into this a little bit when we talk about sequencing on the next slide. Most of the cuts have a standard match, right? So flat cut, the standard match is book, but we can do slip, and we can do random, and we can do plank. With quarter and rift, the standard is slip, but you can do it book, and you can do random and plank. And then, with the random, what that does is it allows you to get larger flitches because you're using multiple logs with similar grain structure, grain and tonality. It randomizes the leaves from different logs, and so you can end up with much larger flitches, which gives you more consistent look throughout your space. Plank is a unique one. Has seams going horizontal as well as vertical, but those are just kind of the basics of what we have with species cut and match. Sequencing. So this one we'll spend a little bit of time on. Talk first about the considerations. When it comes to sequencing, we want to know the product, the species, the cut, and the match. So product, is this panels, planks, or baffles? One thing that's important to note is we will not sequence planks or baffles. And I don't think anyone out there in the marketplace is sequencing that. But that is one that we're not going to do. Part of doing the planks is to have, your wood look broken up. And when you want that, usually you want a little bit more random look. And so if they're asking for planks and they're asking for it to be sequenced, we're going to push them towards panels. And then that way they can get a sequenced look. Baffles, they're all going to be semi-uniform because they're cut out of the same spots of the veneer every single time. So because they're not ever next to each other, like touching each other, sequencing is not important there. So monolithic panels will always be assumed to be sequenced. So unless you tell us that this isn't a sequence, if it's a monolithic wall, which is kind of like what we have behind us, we're going to assume sequencing when we're quoting this. When we quote this, we're going to do it as a line item. And so when they see, when your customer gets a quote, they're going to see the overall, but it's going to be highlighted here. Here's what your sequencing charges are. And the reason that we want to do that is we want to help create the discussion and help them understand if sequencing is important, if they really need to do it on this job, if there's ways that we can help them reduce some of the costs associated with the sequencing, and three, to educate them, right? To help them understand what the difference in species, cuts, and matches, how that can have an effect on their overall end result of what they're going to be seeing when this is installed. With sequencing, I know that a lot of you have sold a lot of jobs that are wall covering sheets of veneer, and those are always sequenced. When you sequence a wall and you're doing a wall covering, you're putting up one sheet, grabbing the next sheet, and so you work one sheet at a time. So if you go to put up a sheet and you mess it up, you just pull that off and you grab the next sheet is right there, and you can keep that sequence as you're installing. When we now take these sheets and we're building these panels, we don't build a panel. We don't start the one panel and build it beginning to end and then start the next panel. We lay it up on our HDF and we do all of that at once. And then we go and move it and we perforate it all at once. And then we create the sandwich panel, the actual panel out of it. We do that all at once. And then we start to cut all at once. And then we edge band all at once. So we can have situations where we lose a panel at any point along there. And so it takes a lot more time and effort and sheets of veneer to help manage this, to make sure that if we lose a panel, we can still keep their end result very sequenced and very uniform. And so that's the challenge that comes into play when we're sequencing a monolithic wood acoustic wall versus wall covering, veneer as wall covering, right? And so that's why there's that line item. That's why it costs a little bit more to do the sequencing. And most of what we see mill workers that sequence, they charge roughly 30 to 40% of the total cost of the project. They just increase the cost that much to do it sequenced. And so ours is not quite that much. There are some projects where it will be getting close to that, but we try to keep our sequencing charges around 10 to 15% of what the project is. But we got to make sure that we're accounting for all that extra labor and things like that. Now, they get the price and it's a little bit higher than they want, and they see this line item of sequencing. Why is it costing me this much to do sequencing? That is a great way to introduce a consultation and help educate them. And we can talk about species, cut, and match. So I have highlighted in there recons. If we do a recon species instead of a natural, it has more consistency from beginning to end than naturals do. You're not going to have that grain variation or that tone variation from sheet 1 to sheet 83. And so if you get some of these sheets that are further apart next to each other, you're not going to see a difference. It's going to be consistent throughout. And so with recons, we don't need to sequence projects. We can maximize the veneer. We can, use it to its most efficient manner to reduce costs. We don't have to sequence. There's no cost there. And so that's the best way to eliminate these sequencing charges is choose a recon veneer. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that. So another thing that comes into play is the cut and the match, right? Flat cuts are a lot harder to sequence than a quarter cut, right? And so we can reduce those costs a little bit if they just move from a flat to a quarter, or the match, right? Random match, you can eliminate a lot of that sequencing. All you got to do is keep the flitch together, right? Because you have more consistency throughout as far as tone. And when you do random, you don't want it to be sequenced because you want to see a little bit more variation in there. That's what you're looking for. And it gives a more consistent flow throughout the space, right? And so those are the types of things that we can help them get there, but we need to have that discussion, right? So wood acoustic panels, a little bit of an update here. We have 2 ways we can do these. Custom build to size. We're going to build these to the exact measurement for quick and easy installation, right? So we'll do shop drawings, we'll build them and cut them to the exact size they want. They get them, they just install them. Nice, simple, easy. Doing it this way though, we can incur some waste charges with that because depending on their sizes, we're not maximizing the veneer. That veneer needs to be paid for. There is waste charges on there. Shop drawings are going to be there to confirm all sizing. They have to approve it before we even start building. The second option that we can do is standard size panels. So here we're going to build to standard sizes that help maximize our veneer. This is going to be 2x4s, 2x8s, 4x4s, and 4x8s. None are going to be material waste. We're going to provide edge band for them to cut to size in field. And what this is going to do, it's going to give them a lower cost per square foot on the material. And so this is something new that we just started. If there's a project out there, cost is kind of a little bit of a concern, we can convince them to move to 4x8 panels that they will trim and do all that stuff in field. That's going to reduce the cost per square foot on the material, right? So they're actually, just from a base cost, a standardized panel has a lower base cost. There won't be waste charges associated with it with it either. So, new thing we want you guys all to be aware of, start talking about. If we build these as standard panels, it's going to cost you less than if we build it to custom size. Now it might cost a little bit more for installation because they've got some labor there, but that's not on us. That's on someone else, so we can help kind of shave some of those costs and those dollars. Okay, wood acoustic planks. I have a poll that we just launched. If you guys can kind of go. The question I have for you is, what is the biggest challenge you have in selling wood acoustic planks? Are we starting to get some results in on the poll or not yet?
Let's take a look.
I think there should be a little thing that pops up where you guys can click on and then I think you might have done it a little early.
We have 2 for price.
2 for price.
We're betting 2 for 35.
2 for 35 price. So I appreciate those that participate in the poll. I kind of knew what this question was going to be, or the answer was going to be. It was going to be price. And we'll talk about that in a second. So with the planks, we have 2 options. We have wood and the wall ceiling plank. Each carton is sold in 32 square foot. And these are individual planks that you get installed individually. The nominal width is 6 inches, 4 and 8 foot are standard lengths. We do a starter kit if they want a subway tile. These can be cut and field. This is just the standard if they want to put planks up. Now, we also have the wood ceiling linear plank system. This is 3 individual planks that are assembled with battens, and so each unit has 3 planks to it, and they install a unit at a time instead of having to install the planks individually. You install each unit. There's a 1/2 inch reveal between each plank, and this product was designed for plenum access. If they want to put this on the ceiling and they need plenum access, it's really hard to put up a bunch of planks and then try and remove just a few to get into your ceiling. And so this is designed to allow them to install planks in their ceiling, be able to remove them easily, and access the plenum. These also can be cut and field, but those are the 2 plank products that we have. Now, price. From a price standpoint, these are very similar in cost to our wood panels. What people run into is they look at these as wood planks that you can go out and buy just any wood plank, and it's a much lower cost than what our panels are. But what we want to make sure is we sell on the value. Our panels or our planks are not just your run-of-the-mill ceiling planks, wall planks, whatever. That's not what they are. They provide the acoustic value. They provide, a lot of times, I think they look a lot better because we use the premium veneer. A lot of times what you see with planks, because it's planks, they use lower quality veneers because there's less room to see some of those imperfections that you're going to see in the face, right? So it's a better visual, and it's acoustical, right? And so if we're talking about acoustics and they want acoustic planks, and they're like, well, I know that there's some other planks out there that are acoustical planks. What they're seeing is what we've talked about before, that they are just the MDF bored out holes with the perforated veneer. Now, when you do planks in that, you can't build a subwall that allows you to put acoustic batting behind it. And it's a lot harder to put acoustic batting in the ceiling if that's the way you're going to install it. And so from an NRC value, there's almost no NRC. I think it's like 0.2 to 0.25 is what you get out of those acoustic planks. Those, the MDF ones. And so they're not going to get the acoustic value that they're hoping by using those types of planks. One of the things that I think has surprised some people when we've talked about is that planks account for 40% of our wood projects that we sell. Of all the wood projects we sold in the last year and a half, 40% of them have been planks. And So while yes, there are times where we have these conversations about pricing and you can get, these other planks really, for a really low cost, we're not seeing that it's actually hindering the sale of planks. We're seeing that planks are still a very large portion of our business. And so I'm not going to discount the challenge of price. I know that's a challenge, but I do believe it's one that can be overcome. And it's one that we can, we want to make sure that we're talking about and that it's on the forefront, that we're talking about whether or not this price is a problem and how we can help address that, right? But still, it's 40% of our business. And then we'll finish it up real quick. I'm a little bit long and I apologize. For baffles. So our wood acoustic baffles, there's 3 standard heights and 4 standard lengths. The length is nominal. The most important thing about our baffles is they cannot be cut and field. Okay. We do not want contractors cutting our baffles because of the way they're constructed and then trying to modify them in field. So we do offer custom sizes. And basically it's lengths. We try to limit the height as much as possible. The reason is with length, it's easy to adjust and cut down length. With the standard height, that comes into play with the width of our veneer. And we, instead of being able to get, maximize the veneer with two baffles, or in the case of the 12-inch planks, 1 baffle per sheet of veneer that we use. Now we have to double the amount of veneer we need when they need 100 instead of needing 50 sheets. If we start changing this, we might need 100 sheets of veneer and cost is really going to go up. So standard heights, we try to keep them as much as possible at the standards, but lengths, we can absolutely do that. The image that you have here is the very first wood baffle job that we ever built. And we have learned so much out of since here, and our baffles they look even better now than they did here. And this particular image, there's a couple of images that we got from this project. Just the image alone has sold so many of the baffle jobs. They get, that's, they kind of hem and haw about the price. We show them images of installs and people instantly like, oh, okay, it looks fantastic. I'll find the money. Here's another one that was just installed in Atlanta. This looks like a render at times, and it's not. This is an actual photo of an installation that we did just a couple months ago.
Those are direct mount to Unistra.
These are direct mounted to Unistra. Yep.
So they're not hung individually.
Correct. So,
do you want to go to the chat before we get to the lookbook?
yes.
I know we are up against the 30-minute mark. We're trying to keep the sessions 30 minutes, but we definitely want to do 30 minutes for Q&A. So if you need to sign off, go for it. We're going to answer some questions that are in the chat. So Daniel, can you advise when sequencing is recommended for acoustic panels?
Amy, I think you popped that question in before I talked about sequencing. So I'm just going to ask after I went over sequencing, did I answer your question to your satisfaction, or would you like more insight? Maybe Amy had to pop off.
I'm here. We're good, Dan. Thank you. Yeah, you answered.
Okay, perfect.
Next.
Okay.
Is using natural versus recon a positioning challenge? Why do so many specifiers choose naturals?
So it definitely can be a positioning problem. And I think that comes with education, right? When people hear recon, they think of a reconstituted wood, right? So they instantly think fake wood. I think that's one of the issues that we run into with that. And so it can be a problem. And even some people, when they get explained and they fully understand what a recon is, because it is real wood. I mean, these are real wood panels, whether it's a recon or a natural. But I think just the name itself, sometimes if there's not that educational piece, can hinder that. Now, you're going to come across people that understand fully what a recon is and still don't want it and still don't like it. And that's fine. But yeah, it can be not necessarily a challenge, but I think at times education can help people realize like, oh, I could use a recon and still have a natural veneer and all of that, right?
And the name unnatural makes it seem like the alternative, whatever you were to call it,
Right.
would be unnatural.
Yeah.
But it is just as natural. And in fact, it makes sequencing considerably less or non-existent. You don't have to sequence because it's so consistent. And a lot of the times that veneer can be cheaper if it's a recon.
Yes, yes, for sure.
So, Gary, if
And
you
sorry, just a follow-up question. I'm sure Anthony has talked to, in all of his trainings, has talked to you about a recon and how it's built and what it is. Is that correct? You guys all have a really good understanding difference between a recon and a natural?
So Daniel, we're going to have some very new people on these calls as
Gotcha. Okay.
well. Most of us do. I think for the new people, when you're using terminology like leaves and flitches, you may want to just give it a quick explanation.
Perfect. Okay.
Just right. So yeah, we're kind of all over the board with knowledge on this call.
Gotcha. So veneer sheet is put together with individual leaves. And so when they build veneer, they take a log, and then the cut is how they cut that. So when we talked about flat cut, quarter cut, rift cut, all that, that just tells them how they're cutting out of this log. So when they cut these leaves out, then they take them, they stitch them all together, and then they put a backer on there, and then they finish it off, and that's how they get their sheet. Now, with a recon, instead of taking a log that was cut down from a tree, they take spare leaves, spare parts to their, the sometimes waste of what they have, and they compress it down together with some resin, and they basically create their own log, and it's a block, right? And then they shave that. And so because they do that, first they're able to determine what leaves they put together and in what order they put them together in. And so when they compress all that down and you get your structure of your grain and your color, it's very consistent. And it's very consistent throughout the entire block. And so they're taking natural veneers, compressing them together, and then shaving that to create their leaves for a recon. So it still is all real wood veneer. There's not any synthetic wood in this in any way, shape, or form. They're just altering it and creating something that's more consistent. And oftentimes easier to produce and cheaper to produce, right? So that's what a recon is. A flitch is a segment of sheets that come from the same log or block, right? So when they cut down the log and they start cutting through and getting all of their leaves together and they stitch it all together, every sheet that comes from that log is considered a flitch. Now, there are times where there's a change in the log, either tonality or grain, there's a knot or something like that, that they'll change and have two flitches per. But basically a flitch is going to be a set of veneer that is very consistent from beginning, consistent from beginning to end, comes from the same log, the same block. So that's what that is. Okay.
and a leaf
Okay.
was the other question. What's a leaf?
A leaf. Oh, we talked. The leaf is what they. That's when they cut the log. That's the leaf. They stitch those together.
What about match?
Match? So is how they stitch them together. So book match is they take one leaf and they open it up, and they stitch together that way, and then they flip it over. So it alternates the way that it goes, and so it gives you. Like if you're opening a book and you have an image, it's going to mirror itself, right? Slit match is when they take the stack and instead of opening it up, they just pull it off to the side and they slip it over. And so all of your grain is kind of going, kind of gives you a little bit of a directional across the sheet, right? Then random is they take the leaves and they kind of mix them up and then stitch them together, right? And so you don't have the same, because they're using different leaves from different logs. They'll take one from this one from this one from this one, and stitch them together. And so it's not, each leaf isn't going to be the same and in order like you would with a book or a slip.
So you mentioned standard sizes and being able to
Yep.
send them and edge banded in field, which is a cool new program. If they do select custom though, what's the maximum size of a
Yep.
custom?
So maximum size is 4x8. So for a panel, 4x8 is the biggest size that we can build. For baffles, the longest baffle we can make is 96 inches. Baffles, we do have, as you can see in this photo, even having an intentional reveal can look good and break up how you want to do that. There's another photo that I'm going to get to. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I can't go. Where'd it go? Nope. I don't know. A specific one. This one here, those are all baffles. And so
It's running vertically. right?
yeah, those are all R-wood baffles, direct mounted to that ceiling. You can see the seam on that first one, but you can't see the seams anywhere else. These are just butt jointed. So it's no different than if you're gonna wrap veneer. There's gonna be a seam where you get to one end of the sheet. You're gonna see a seam. It's very similar seam. So you can do butt joints and still have a great look. So
Rolls in perfectly to the next question. Are all these photos accessible online, and does all of the mode representatives have access to them?
I do not believe they're on the mode website. Some of them are in the mode brochure book. Keith and Brock are working to get this stuff accessible, more available to everybody. If you ever need photos of something, you can always email me and I'll get photos of a particular product. Because a lot of times you don't need a bunch of photos of panels. You just need a photo of some plank installations, right? So we can always do that for you. We are working to get a collection of imagery that is available for you guys.
And Daniel,
yes.
most of this is, I recognize them from our presentations, but you
Yeah.
did point out a few new ones in here. If you could send them over with the video, and then I'll get them out to the crew on with the link tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
And I can help you with that tomorrow if you want to link up. So great question. And thanks for raising that. All right. Well, we got questions pouring in. So
Yeah.
might
So-
want to go a little mid
The samples,
session stretch.
yeah, the samples of the planks, the samples that we send out this year is the sample for panels or planks. It's a little wider than the plank, but it's the same sample. They're built the exact same way. When it comes to the linear plank ceiling system, we don't do samples of that with the battens unless it's for a submittal. We'll do 100% do submittal samples for that, but this is essentially what we want them, what we're going to show them as far as like, hey, these will just be joined together in battens. It's more of an installation thing, not what they're going to see and what they're going to be. But the wood samples that we have are for planks or panels.
Can we
Okay,
get plank
quick
hardware
question,
out?
Daniel. On the planks, it's going to be the same thickness
Yep.
as the panels that we have in our,
Correct.
right? Same thickness. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
It's an identical product, just cut different, right? 6 inches
Yeah.
by whatever versus a 2x4 or 4x8 or whatever.
Yeah.
So samples for baffles. You all should have one in your.
Hold on real quick. The question was about hardware.
I didn't see the hardware one. I think having a plank hardware sample. Oh,
If you want to.
gotcha. Sorry.
You feel free to request whatever hardware you would like. We don't want to send out necessarily a massive hardware kit to 35 people if it's not kind of relevant to you in the moment. But that's also something that when we do the follow-up kind of engagement that we do after these sessions, we can possibly do it in that form or email Keith or myself or Daniel if you do need a plank hardware kit, and we will get that out to you basically that same day or the next day.
With that, I will say, we are learning the hardware that we use for our planks. It helps them go together like a tongue and groove. And it's fantastic hardware. It's a super easy installation, but it is rather expensive. And so one of the things we're finding is some of our contractors that we work with regularly have installed these with no hardware, and they've had great success with that, where they're using construction adhesive and pin nails to install this. It's much cheaper and super simple. So it's something that we're going to start to talk about with plank jobs that we have, and especially when we have consults about them, about the best way to install, to help also bring down that cost, because hardware, we do understand it is a little bit expensive for the planks. So, but yeah, we can definitely get samples of that out.
Next question. Give me 1 or 2 advantages of peel and stick and 1 or 2 disadvantages of peel and stick for a plank.
Peel and stick is the only advantage is that it's a super simple install. The disadvantages are great. You have no flexibility. So if once you put it on, it's stuck. Like, you can't peel it off and readjust it, right? So you have to be precise when you're installing it. The other issue that we run into is the substrate that you're adhering to. It has to be a level 4 or 5 finish, or premium grade plywood with the face sticking out. And that's one of the things that we find is the biggest challenge. Is one, a lot of people don't realize that every plywood sheet has a face and a back. A lot of people don't know that. It's hard to tell that just by holding plywood. But there is definitely a face and a back. And the difference is the face is adhered a lot better when you're talking about the layers of the plywood than it is on the back, because it needs to be a smoother surface, because there needs to be more consistency. They don't want to do that to every layer that they do. So they just make that face super smooth and consistent. And so if you have them upside down, because it's not as great adhesion, the layers of the plywood itself can start to separate and you cause issues. So we've really started to really push people away from the peel and stick on the planks, because using construction adhesive and pin nails, and if it's on a wall, you don't even necessarily need the pin nails. You can just use construction adhesive and it works just as good as the peel and stick, but it's easier to install and you don't have to worry about how the condition of your substrate you're adhering to.
Awesome. All right, last question for now. You were showing the Nantucket basketball court,
Yes.
and tell us about how they adhered those baffles
Yeah.
to the ceiling there. Because we see the planks.
So
What
yes,
about the baffles?
when I say beams, all the cutting the planks are the flat ones, and then everything running horizontal, that the beams, those are our wood acoustic baffles. I have tried so many times to get a conversation with this contractor to find out what he did, because we did not sell this as these would be flush mounted. They did all of that on their own. The other thing that I noticed that they did is they cut these in field. Again, we don't recommend it. A lot of it is we don't know the quality of the contractor and mill worker that's installing this. And if you haven't used our product before, it can be difficult because they try to treat it like millwork and it's not millwork, right? And so these are all the real wood veneer baffles here. There's no felt in this project, but I don't know what they did. We have studied this image and have our ideas of what they did. But I've never been able to have a conversation to find out what they used to install these directly mounted to that ceiling. So I apologize. With direct mount on the baffles, we're not saying no, but let's talk about it. We have some projects out there where we are accommodating, we can accommodate, but there's some very definite caveats to this. And what we can do right now is not right for every project. And so we don't want to just say, yeah, we can absolutely mount to a ceiling. We'll say, hey, we want to talk about that. Let's have a conversation. Let me get my team involved. And then we can have the conversation, ask more questions about what they're hoping to accomplish, and then come to a determination of whether or not it's feasible and we can help solve for that. So
Which brings up a great point is, because we now have this adhesive and pin nail option and there's direct mount, this is a prime opportunity to set up and install consoles.
Yeah.
Whether they order the product or it's still in the kind of that shopping phase, is to have that installation
Yes.
discussion.
so
So that's a great point Peter brought up.
So we try to talk about installation on the front end of every project that we have consoles for. We do that because we've realized that not everybody thinks through everybody's aspect of the job. They think through one thing, right? Designers and architects, a lot of times, they're so focused on the end result, what it's going to look like. And then contractors and installers, the thing they want to know is how to install this. And so if it hasn't been thought through on the front end, it makes it much harder on the back end, which then can come with unexpected costs and delays, right? So we do try to have that conversation in the beginning. Anytime we have a console, we talk about that.
So we have 6 minutes. If we want to go through some pictures real quick, Daniel, if you just want to give us
Yeah, let me,
20 seconds, point out 1 or 2 features maybe of every picture.
so yeah,
And you can continue taking questions in the chat and I can raise those as we go.
this is one where an image sold this project. When you get your baffles close together like this, it does increase your cost per square foot. You will see that go up, and a lot of times it's hard to swallow. With imagery like this, though, what we had a different image that we showed, and they were going to say, hey, we're not going to do this. Then they saw an image of it being installed at a smaller scale, and they're like, oh, that looks too good. We can find the money, right? And so this is we typically don't have baffles this close together. They don't need to be acoustically. This is strictly a visual thing, but it does increase cost when you're going through there.
And speaking of that, that was a contractor.
Yeah.
And so, talking about a premium product, the contractor themselves loved the product so much that they were willing to afford that premium to have that in their staff lounge.
Yeah, that was
So
an
there's any
office.
customer you want, it's the contractor themselves who loves it.
Yeah, that was the office of a large general contractor.
Are all these images that we're looking at, are these all mode jets?
No, they're not all.
So they're historical.
So they're just historical projects that 1775 has done. This one here just kind of shows a collaboration of wood and fabric in the same space. Another image of that first job we ever did. This is kind of one of our marquee images. I think most of you, at least those of other than the new people, have seen this image. This is our Trava curve or wood acoustic curve. It allows us to create radiuses with the panels. Really great project that we did in San Francisco. This is that Baylor School of Medicine. They did the unique ceiling plus planks. This ceiling is the linear system. That unit that has 3 baffles or 3 panels together.
To the right.
Yes.
It's a linear
That is the linear plank.
plank
system.
Batten.
Yep. We just did a
Okay,
great
makes
project, and I can't wait to get images of Maggiano's. So we have a mode installation that we can show you.
Are all those field cuts, all of those lights there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So they used a hole saw or something like that, did field cuts, and were able to do all electrical, HVAC, all of that stuff.
Yep.
Wow.
This is a wood printed job. So they printed, this one was somewhat difficult because we also had to do image alignment across the panels. But this is in a hotel in New York. This one here, what I love about this image here is it shows the contrast of whether or not you want or mode or national to supply the veneer for both products, right? These are all beams that are wrapped in veneer. And the contractor was adamant about not using anybody else's veneer but his own. And that is why you see the discrepancy in color and tone between the beam and our panels behind it. So in each one of those coffers are panels, and then the beams are some other veneer, and you can see that contrast, and you don't get a real clean, consistent look. So this is a great image to kind of show, hey, this is what happens if, you know, we don't supply everything, which we can do, and make it a nice, seamless, consistent look for your project. This is our herringbone ceiling. Don't know why it's pixelated. I thought this was a much clearer image, but
Cleaned up after you loaded it, right?
um,
It's good.
this is a herringbone ceiling in Arizona. These panels were mounted with construction adhesive and pin nails, and no one can see any of the pin nails, and they absolutely love the end result.
And there was a jig on this, right? Or jib?
Yes. So when they want a herringbone ceiling, we handle everything. We make it really easy for them. We create a jig that they put on the ceiling to get their first row, and then they just work off of that. So they don't have to sit there and measure each time they're installing that first row of panels.
Hundreds of panels up there. So
Yeah.
if you start at one end and go to the other end, it's going to start to walk.
Yeah.
And so we actually built a custom jig for this project so they could perfectly line up every single plank in that herringbone pattern.
Yeah. Just a caveat, it's not a custom jig. It is a standard jig that goes anytime someone's buying panel planks for herringbone ceiling, they will get the jig for the wood planks. The felt, it's a lot easier to manipulate and move, and you don't have as much issues there. But for these, we install the jig. We can do it for felt, but with wood, every single time we'll get that jig.
So that's construction adhesive and pin nails.
Yep.
And are pin nails the same as finish nails?
Yes, sort of. Pin nails usually have a much smaller and very minute head to them, or no head at all. But finish nails have a much broader spectrum of a definition of what they are. Pin nails are very, it's where the head is just basically just a bubble, or there's no head at all.
And they would both work.
Depends on the application.
Okay.
So we'll, and those are things that we talk about with the installer, right? This one here was installed with construction adhesive and no pin nails, just construction adhesive. That's the conference room of the same office building that the baffles from the first picture were in. We've discussed this one here. I will say, just so you know, those are custom 8-inch wide planks, not our standard 6. We can do custom widths in the planks, but it usually increases cost just a little bit. This is a photo that marries our felt and our wood. So all of the beams are felt beams, and the wood is our wood veneered planks, and it's right in the center of that triangle there.
And the white area is felt tiles. So those are all white felt tiles with wood wrapped infrastructure, essentially. So it made it look like beams, although those are all felt. And then, like Daniel said, real wood planks in that triangular area in the middle. And then the next image will also show a similar installation as well. So this is the same space.
This is the same restaurant. The planks in this are the felt planks.
So they use wood planks, felt planks.
No, this one here, it says
In the other picture
yes,
was real wood planks.
yes,
This is felt planks.
yes.
The other ones were felt beams. What are those?
Those are felt beams.
Felt beams.
So this is felt and felt. The other one was wood and felt.
So the color match, yeah, this like a stain match essentially,
Yeah.
quote unquote, between the felt and the wood is like freaking spot on.
This is a very high-end restaurant here in Denver.
All right.
So,
I have one question for you.
okay,
Can we make screens like we do out of wood?
No.
Great. Move on.
Got it. So with wood screens, we can, if there's a particular project, let's talk about it. Maybe there's ways that we can give a similar look or feel, but out of the wood product as it's constructed, no, we can't do that. We might be able to modify our current screens to accommodate with some caveats, right? So short answer, no. Long answer, if you have a project, talk to me about it. We'll figure it out. Okay. So activate. Our challenge to you guys. It's two of them. One, I challenge all of you guys to find a project that has millwork. Maybe there's no acoustics at all or anything, but start a conversation about what acoustics. Hey, I see you have millwork in this space. Have you thought about the acoustics in there? A lot of times hard surfaces create echoey chambers, loud spaces. So have you thought about the acoustics in there? We have a product that gives you the look of millwork, but absorbs sound. We can do wood acoustics. And a lot of times it's very similar costs to the millwork. And then you don't have to think about the acoustics after the fact or find other ways to solve for the acoustics. You can solve for it all at once. So I challenge you all to find a project that you know of that has millwork, and then use the fact that they're using millwork as a starting point to start a conversation about wood acoustics. The other challenge I have is to find one architect or designer to have a conversation about with sequencing and bring either Anthony or us into that. And this is strictly about education. Doesn't necessarily need to be on a project. If it's on a project, fantastic. But we're out there, we're having conversations all the time. We're talking about wood, talk about, hey, sequencing. Do you sequence your projects at all? And start that conversation and be like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of ways you can help reduce costs with sequencing. Love to have a conversation, help educate you about that. Start having these conversations, because that is where we can really provide value. Last session, and this is the last thing I'll let you go. I'm so sorry if you have to leave, hop off. I know we're 3 minutes over. Last thing, and I'll let you all go unless you want to stick around for more questions. Last session, I talked about a project where we had a solutioning conversation where we educated them and made them feel so comfortable that they changed the spec on another project and brought us and said, no, we're not going to let someone else do this. They're building it. That was a wood project. It was one that was one of those large projects that we talked about that was over 700,000. They wanted to have specifically quarter cut, book matched, sequenced look. We had this conversation and we talked to them about, hey, this is the things you're going to see there. Here's the challenges from a construction standpoint based upon where you're at with sizing and all that kind of stuff. We talked to them about how they can reduce their cost of this project, how they can find different ways. And we educated them on what the challenges they're going to have with that. What some recommendations we could do to reduce the costs and the challenges and making it easier install. And we had an hour-long conversation. And at the beginning of it, they were adamant, we are not going to change. We are going to use quarter cut, book match, white oak. By the end, we're using quarter cut random match and changing panel sizes and doing all this other stuff because we educated them and we saved them. I think we saved them almost $100,000 on the project by changing this, right? And that's when they were like, we took the time to educate them, help them understand the challenges that not only we're going to face from a construction standpoint, but the challenges that the installer is going to face from an installation standpoint, and help them understand how small little changes could affect that and give them the look they're going for, but at an easier way to do it and a cheaper cost to do it. And that there solved. Anytime this architect is going to do wood panels or wood acoustics in their spaces, we're going to be doing it. Nobody else. It's going to be us. And so that's why having these discussions is so important, is because you're taking the time to educate them on things nobody else is educating them. And a lot of times we want to think that people know, especially because they're going to talk about it with authority, right? But what we realize is that not a lot of people understand veneer in general and sequencing in particular. So I'll leave you with that. I'm happy to stick around and answer any other questions that more people have.
Oh, there's more questions.
If you want to stick around, stick around. If you want to hop off, hop off. Apologize for going over on this one. I knew it was going to be a very engaging session. So,
So,
yeah, let's go to the more questions.
so to put a bow on it until we get another question, this is recorded, so go watch and rewatch and share it with all your, your colleagues and friends and family. Following up with this, we will do a little fun little engagement that we are starting to do. Thank you so much for joining. We went from 3 people to 5 people to 21 people to 33 people. So we are gaining traction here, and that is awesome to see.
We also do really want feedback, right? We want to make sure that these sessions are helping and they're good and you're getting something out of them. We do put a lot of time into it. But we also want to make sure that it's what you guys want and it's content and information that you guys want and need. So always welcome for feedback. And again, with that, we will see you. I'm going to hang out for just a few more minutes. If anybody sticks around to ask questions, I'll answer anything, but you are free to go.
Didn't want to miss a question
Okay.
or an answer.
I have a quick question. I was asked today about the wood baffles, about the NRC rating with the baffles. And like I said, it really, like the image you showed when they're very close together to get the visual look. And that was what I said. I said, I said, I'd have to know like how many you have, how high the ceilings are, how big the space is. And I said, I know we do acoustic sound modeling. So what would be like a good way to answer that question?
Yeah. So we test our baffles. So they've been tested and there's an NRC value. They're tested at 12 inches apart. So as you start to get further away,
Okay.
that NRC value is going to diminish. As you get closer, that NRC value is going to increase. And so I'm pulling up real quick. So at 12-inch tall baffles and 12-inch centers is a 1.12 NRC value. So shorter baffles will have a little bit lower NRC value than that. If you start to expand those out further apart, it'll diminish just a little bit. And if you bring them closer together, it's going to increase. But we can't test every variation of
Right.
things. So we pick one kind of to start with, and that's what we do. 12-inch baffles on 12-inch on centers.
12-inch baffles at 12-inch on centers, and it's a 1.25, did you say?
1.12.
Okay. 1.12. Do we have, if I look through the documentation, can I find that in there?
It should be on the baffle cut sheet. I'm gonna pull that up real quick just to make sure that it is. Yes, it is on the cut sheet, the wood acoustic baffle cut sheet. It's sound performance. It has it on the line item in the specifications portion of that.
Okay. Great.
It doesn't tell you that it's 12-inch baffles on 12-inch on centers,
Okay.
but it does have the NRC value.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. All right. Have a good night. Thank
All
you.
right.
Much.
We'll see you guys.
Bye.